Hey everyone, we are going to revisit this unit circle just to get a little bit more comfortable with it. There's a lot of steps, a lot of parts in the videos that we watched last week. So we want to just do a quick recap so that you get really familiar with it. So I'm going to just not talk through all the steps because we did that last week. We're going to just focus on being able to fill this in pretty quickly. So all we're going to look at today is the degrees and the radians. So first I'm going to go around by 30 degrees. And remember that that is going to give me every single branch except for those middle branches. Okay, so here we go. 0, 30, 60, and 90. Then we have 120, 150, and 180. Then we have 210, 240, 270, and then we have 300, 330, and 360. So every single one is just the previous angle plus 30 degrees. And then the last part are these middle branches. And those are halfway in between the surrounding branches, I guess. So remember, we're just adding 15. So 30 plus 15 is 45. 120 and 15 is 135. 210 plus 15 is 225. And 300 plus 15 is 315. So those are your degrees. And then the very last thing we'll do is the radians. So just like with the degrees, there we go. Just like with the degrees, for the radians, we're going to go around and it will give us every single branch except the middle branches. And we also said, we kind of started with, I know this is 0 and I know this is pi. And so if you just look from 0 to pi, you can see those 6 pizza slices. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So the pie has been cut into 6 slices, and so we go around using our fractions. I'm going to write these out here to see if it's a little bit easier to see. 1 pi over 6, 2 pi over 6, 3 pi over 6, 4 pi over 6, 5 pi over 6. This is 6 pi over 6, 7 pi over 6, 8 pi over 6, 9 pi over 6, 10 pi over 6, 11 pi over 6, and 12 pi over 6. And then quickly reducing, we have pi over 3, we have pi over 2, we have 2 pi over 3, 6 pi over 6 is pi, 8 pi over 6, 4 pi over 3, 9 pi over 6 is 3 pi over 2, and 10 pi over 6 is 5 pi over 3. So I'm going to just circle those. 4 pi over 3, etc. And 12 pi over 6, I forgot that one, is 2 pi. So that is going around, I always call that going around by 6s. And then I'm going to, I want to get one more copy because this gets difficult to see pretty quickly. So the very last one, let's see, it's going to be weird. Oh, good. The very last one is going to be when we go around by 4s. So going back, again, this is 0 and this is pi. So when you cut into 45 degrees, you have 45 going then to 90, and then that middle branch in here. So going around by 45 degrees creates 4 pizza slices, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. And so for those, we are going to go around the circle by 4s. So the first one is 1 pi over 4 and 2 pi over 4, 3 pi over 4, and 4 pi over 4. This is 5 pi over 4, 6 pi over 4, 7 pi over 4, and 8 pi over 4. You hear the birds sitting outside right now. 2 pi over 4 goes to pi over 2. 4 pi over 4 reduces to pi. 5 pi over 4. 6 pi over 4 is 3 pi over 2. 7 pi over 4, 8 pi over 4 is 2 pi. And then just quickly remember that some of these are overlapping angles that we had already. So we already had this one, and we already had this one, and we already had this one, and we already had this one. But that's okay, no big deal, because we reduced them before and we got the same thing that we got this time around. So going around by 6s gives you all of the radians except the middle branches, and then going around by 4s, there's a little bit of overlap, but you get those middle branches as well. Okay, so that was our recap of the radians and the degrees.